Hello, everyone, and welcome on in to our Unapologetic Woman Hour, conversations that I have with women about what it means to be unapologetic, not only in their lives, but for some women in their wellness, in their leadership, in their soul growth. And today I'm excited to have a conversation with Brittany Tam all about money and all the energies around that big word. So Brittany, let's get the ball rolling with this juicy conversation. I would love for you to just share with my community who you are and who you serve. And for you, what does it mean to be unapologetic with money?
Man, when you said money in that way, like I have to tell you, like the feelings in my body brewed up because really theoretically we know that money is neutral, and yet we carry a lot of emotion with money. Um, so my work with business owners, um, predominantly women business owners, and money stemmed from my bookkeeping practice, where I was noticing that I had a group of people who were able to get data to me. We were able to process the data and give them everything that they needed to make decisions based on financial information. And yet I had another group of people where we were building systems and the systems never seemed to take. And there's only so many times that you can create a system that fails before you start thinking, is it the system or is there something else that we need to address?
Yeah.
And so that's where I've like found a lot of delight shifting into how do I support women in their relationship with money so that they're able to engage with it with more peace, with more ease, with more joy, with more love and compassion. And we work on those emotional pieces and then bringing in the practical pieces, because we live in a tangible physical world and we need to engage with it, but it doesn't have to be painful or hard.
Yeah. Well, I love you tapping in, as I say in a lot of my community experiences, as much as I can. I try and bring like the level of realism, maybe what's the clinical, the physical, and connect it to the energetic, the metaphysical, the spiritual. They can really merge together. And I think when we are figuring out a topic for this conversation today, it was the big overarching title of money, and that how those two things can really start to merge together more. And also, I think, and this is where I would love to ask you, it then can open up things for people that they didn't realize was attached to their money. And we were just having a conversation of how deep, like, personal self-doubt, all those things can affect the way that we create money, manifest money, block it, but also relationship stuff and all the nitty-gritties of that, let alone everything else going on in our lives. It's like, oh man, now my relationship also affects my money. But that there could be power in the awareness of it. But I wanted to kind of ask you, is with the clients you've worked with, or even personally, have you come to notice more connections to money now versus maybe in the past, where it was maybe just material, realistic, it's the trend of the economy and we're just going to stick to that? But how some of these deeper soul level, spiritual, energetic stuff can really have a deep talent into money. I'd love your input on that.
Yeah. So I think one of the reasons why I've really leaned into it is because I am a deeply curious person. And what I've come to notice as I work with people in their relationship with money, as we get curious and approach it with that compassionate, like, how can we serve you lens, is it's never about the money. It's never about the money. Money is neutral, like really, it is neutral, but it doesn't feel neutral. We have so many ways in which money is conflated with other things in our lives. There's such a strong tie in a lot of us between money and safety. Money inherently isn't safety. Money is the currency with which we purchase things that help us feel safe. But yet, money is the safety for a lot of us. Money is tied to our sense of worth. Like, what is our value of, as a human, and how is that represented by money? And then with all of those like worth safety things, if we haven't gained some clarity around that with money, it colors all of our other interactions. It colors how we engage with work. It colors how we engage in relationships.
Yeah, it's the work that I do, right? It's that the trauma-based, trauma-informed work. Money comes up for a lot of the clients I work with. In my year-long Sacred Sisterhood program, we dove deep into this, and so many women were realizing, because of traumatic experiences in relationships in the past, trauma that occurred to them, especially with other people, impacted the way they chose to buy or not buy, what they invested in. And what they realized is they didn't invest a lot in self-growth, self-care. That's the deeper self-care, right? I'm here in my office. I offer massage and energy healing. It's great, but there can be an intention somebody holds behind that, where it's just going to be, oh, I just go and get a massage and it's my self-care. I show up, I ask this practitioner to fix me for an hour, and then I leave thinking like there's no other work to be done. Self-care work, the deep work, is investing in our soul's journey, in the growth our soul wants to have. And by doing that, we need to clear out the wounding. And for so many women, I feel like money is like the surface-based stuff that they'll start to realize. And then when they open up that, it like opens up the door to how so much of their wounding is connected to money, because we've been misinformed in so many ways, that in society, I think in different ways, that money equates to our value and our worth. It can, if we do it the right way, right? Like, we step into our value, we believe we're worthy, we can manifest. It's powerful. I mean, I've witnessed it myself. I've witnessed it in clients, but it can go the other way too. And if we don't value self and we feel wounded, then the money also, because of this energy, it can feel affected. What are your thoughts on that, or anything you want to share around that?
Yeah, so many thoughts. I'm like, which direction do we go? One of the things that kind of popped into my mind when you were talking about that worthiness is like, I feel like a lot of people in general, but also a lot of women, have wounds around their worthiness. And one of the wounds that like I didn't anticipate necessarily having to walk this journey with people is if your sense of self-worth is so low, how do you hold a vision for yourself? What is the vision of the future that you want to create? And if you can't get a sense of like, well, how do you want to feel in a year from now, then how do you take any action that's intentional? So one of the things that I've been leaning into is the discovery calls have always felt a little bit like, I don't know, that the idea of going into a new relationship, selling is aligned with my values, especially knowing how many wounds we carry with money, how sensitive it is, how deep into the core is. But exploring the idea of let's start relationships by generating some curiosity about your vision. If you haven't carved out time to create a vision for yourself in 3 months' time, to explore how do you want to feel in your life, in the action that you take? What are your values that guide your choices, then let's just spend some time in doing that. And if we click, and if we feel like there's something possible, then I'm going to trust that you'll ask me. And if that's just the kickstart that you needed to take little action steps, and we both get jazzed up and our energy both goes higher, then let's just allow that to be the joy, that the creation that we bring into the world together, for our initial contact. But yeah, like you said, there's so much with money, with worth, with how the ways in which we ask for money, the ways in which we reject money, and the subconscious things that are in play that we don't know about that lead us to rejecting money. You mentioned in our conversation previous to this, like the idea of money blocks, and the money blocks are real, and the money blocks are driven by this subconscious belief that we hold about money. And it's really powerful when we can put a finger on what is the subconscious belief and acknowledge it, give it some space, see where it's come from, and the possibility of how can we release it when we are able to exercise compassion, see what that little inner child is trying to do for us.
Yes.
And explain to it that, like, you know, the situation is different now, and I appreciate how you're trying to keep me safe. And I got this. We can accept money and it's going to be okay.
Yeah, and I love what you're saying. I think we, as a society, use this thing too much. We try and figure everything out. To me, that is just toxic masculine energy that has to create this structure in this container that it can become suffocating. Feminine energy is about free-flowing expression. And I think as a society, what's happening now, we're in this transition of busting out of the toxic containers that we thought we needed to be in. And we see it everywhere at levels of government. We see it in different communities. We see it in industries. From, you know, you're in the more of the financial industry to the health and wellness industry. Like we're seeing it happening. The thing is a lot of times when these strong structures and containers have been around for a long time, they don't want to get knocked down, right? It's like they've built like a building to withstand a hurricane. So it takes the people that decide, I don't want to be in this building anymore. I want to be over here, to then have this structure no longer necessary because it's not holding anything. It's not that we have to crumble structures. It's this yes and approach. And I think we're trained from these toxic strategies and structures that we have to fight. And no, we actually can just choose differently. And I love what you're saying around this idea of money. And I think what we're talking about with this deeper level of worth is we're all now in so many ways being given an opportunity to choose differently. And it doesn't mean we have to fight. And I'm not saying that we retreat, we stay silent. I don't believe staying silent is okay. And I also believe sometimes stepping up, saying something is important because there's this level of equity that needs to happen, so that we all as humans can thrive and feel joy in our lives. And those that right now have the opportunity to be heard by more, that they use it intentionally. They're not going to use it intentionally unless the masses behind them say, I want to see it different. You know, there is more power in the consumer than we realize. You know, there is more power in the voters than we realize, because we're told by these that are higher that there isn't. But we, as a whole, that tap into our wisdom, like you're saying here, Brittany, it's like when we say, no, I don't want to be in this structure anymore, I'm going to choose this one instead. and we let ourselves be open to more of this free flowing energy, things change in our lives. Money can happen, health, relationships, it starts to flow more because there's not this suffocation. And that's what I hear you give people as an invitation to look at how they don't need to be suffocated as much anymore.
Yeah. And I love that you brought in that wounded masculine, because I think that's something that's been coming through a lot for me lately, is how many of the beliefs that I hear people coming in with come out of that wounded masculine, where, like you say, there are structures in place that benefit like these people, but it's not necessarily serving us. So I feel like the invitation is there for us to take a step back, gain some perspective, to connect and assess what are the actions that I take that are aligned with the divine feminine. And we do live in a tangible world. And I think that that's where, what is our divine masculine action?
Yes.
Because action is important, but where does the energy and the intention for your action come from? Is it driven by fear, or is it driven by that connection to your divine feminine?
And it's something I've started to coin, like that wisdom. When we can build from our connection to the wisdom that we have from within, then the masculine energy gets to grow. It's planted, the seed is planted for a masculine energy to grow from wisdom, from intuition, from divine light and love. And when masculine energy grows from fear, there's only a certain way that it can grow, and it loses the ability to be as fluid, right? And
that's it. It doesn't feel easy. And I don't know about you, but I am done with hard. I am over hard.
yeah,
I love the idea of our action being easy.
yeah, and I believe that certain things require us to be focused and committed, and it's the way humans are built are with habit change. I'm trained in it as a coach. Habit change is a thing. We can't get away from it. Don't expect to run a marathon in a week. Don't expect to change sometimes your money habits in a week, right?
Yeah.
It's this consistency. But what I tell most of my clients is, when you are consistent to committing to this new way that could serve you more, every time you choose this way, it almost like these little cheerleaders inside of your brain get to say, yay, go you, you're worthy. Instead of the old way where it's the gremlin saying, see, I told you so, you're worthless.
Yeah.
And it's like,
and I feel like
our
there's
cheerleaders more, like our cheerleaders want to be on the job more.
yeah. And I feel like there's a distinction to be made too between like what is hard versus what requires effort. Because I am all about let's take effort, but does effort need to feel hard? Maybe effort can feel easy because it's so aligned with how we are supposed to be.
I like
it's
that.
so
Yeah.
aligned with our vision.
Effort's really aligned with your commitment. And the commitment, when it's connected to divine self, doesn't add hard. To me, like hard has stress attached to it. And we all have enough issues to stress about, and high cortisol rates mess up everything for so many people. It's like, shifting. I feel like this could be the juicy nugget of this conversation, is just shifting your definition you make of hard, and that maybe effort can be a connection. And when people are looking at now, whether they're listening to this in the present moment, they're listening to this as a recording, it's like, where can your efforts be more aligned so that working, making money, if you're listening to this and the money's flowing, but you have health issues or whatever it is, it's like, how can we shift this connection to, it doesn't have to be hard, it has to be more intentional, committed effort. I like that.
Yeah. There are so many people who come in with like all of these stories that we picked up, we created in our youth, or we took from our parents, from our grandparents, about how making money is hard, we have to work really hard. But hard doesn't feel joyful or delightful to me. And who's to say that making money can't take effort and feel delightful? And not just delightful for you, but delightful on both ends. Who's to say that your client can't be so stoked to give you money because they value you so much, because you've brought so much richness to their life, right?
Yeah. I think that's a really great way to close this out. And we bring it like full circle. It comes back to, even these relationships. Money is so intertwined with relationships, but it first starts with this one, relationship to self. And then it really can nurture and manifest more joy in the relationships we have with others. We get to be in a different vibrational frequency when we're with others, when we're aligned, where money can flow. It's just, I've noticed it in so many people. And so I would love to leave everybody with this idea of, the effort and the connection to self and your worth to be a motivating factor for you to realize, maybe where are you trying to do too much on your own? I find when we're looking at money work, now that we've kind of dug deeper, it can bring up a lot of wounding. And it can be an easy gremlin to be like, no, I think I could fix this all myself. I'm going to go isolate with self and I'm going to figure out all my stuff. And it's why there are people like Brittany and myself here to support. We have to, I think, too, to really bust through these blocks that money has on a lot of people right now. We have to stop isolating. We have to be in connection with others to support, because when we can feel safe enough to feel vulnerable, to share our deepest, darkest secrets around our money stuff, then we can realize we are safe. Because, right, money and safety are so connected. So I encourage all of you, it's like this conversation Brittany and I had can be the catalyst for you to be like, okay, I know this might be something I want to work through. And where can I reach out for support? And that's why I want to leave people with an opportunity that you potentially could be their support system, or you could help them to find the right support system. So I know you have some free opportunities for some of the women listening in.
Yeah, I love that. And I think the thing that prompts to me is too, like, we don't see our own blind spots, right? And so we invite people in to help us see our blind spots and to empower us to take action around those. Yeah. I do have some free resources on my website. I do believe you have the links to them below. One of the things that I created recently in response to some conversations I had was a workbook for designing a nourishing money date. And that came up because there were a lot of women that I was talking to who have an engagement with money, but they don't feel good going into it. So part of that journey is connecting to why you're there. And it's not the fear-based why, but what is the why that like gets you excited, that gets you engaged? And then do we need to do some somatic stuff to calm the nervous system, as well as bringing up our energy as part of our money date? So yeah, please check that out.
Yes, everyone check out Brittany's free resources. It does make a difference when we find those that can help support us when we're going through things. It's why I do so much group work. It's why I bring people like Brittany into my community, because we don't want to do this thing called life alone. And when we can have people in our corner, we can have people that we're like, oh, I'm not the only one going through this. It takes away some of that scary factor. And it gives us the courage to really dive into some of this stuff that we thought might be super scary or that we couldn't handle. And we realize we can handle it because we're strong, courageous, unapologetic women. And
Oh, I love how you tied that together.
yes, and I want to close out by, I always like to ask my women that I have this conversation with, what does it mean to you, Brittany, to be unapologetic?
The lessons that I have been learning is to deeply trust myself, my higher self, that the action that I take will create what it needs to create. And so if I am in alignment with my higher self, that's all I need to be worried about. I don't need to worry about what is the concrete product that comes out of my action, because
Higher self, worry bye-bye. I like it.
Trust.
Yeah. Thank
Yeah.
you, Brittany, for sharing your wisdom today. And any of you that are interested, I'll have the links to connect with her so you can learn more about Brittany and all of the other women that we've had these unapologetic conversations with. We'd love to have many of you a part of our community. My website, tracystotalwellness.com, has invitations for events, circles, our sacred sisterhood, and so much more, so that we don't have to do this thing called life alone. We can step into our true divine selves, as Brittany said, that allows you to live as an unapologetic woman. So thank you, Brittany, and thank you all for tuning in. And this is Tracy with Tracy's Total Wellness and our Unapologetic Woman Hour.